Hi there, welcome back to the Car UK channel and to the very first episode of Classic Car Showdowns, which is where I'm going to give you a scenario of vehicles and I want you to pick which one you would have chosen if you had to go out and buy one of these cars brand new in a certain date of time over the last 40 years. Now, in today's episodes, we're going to look at small hot hatches from the year of 1993. I'm going to give you a selection of 12 different vehicles and a set of circumstances, and you've got to pick which one you would go and buy. So here is the brief for today's episode. It is the year 1993 and you can spend just under £13,000 to buy a small hot hatch vehicle. So it must be obviously a hot hatch type vehicle, a little peppy car, and i.e. must be a segment A or segment B vehicle. So sort of a Ford Fiesta or smaller. That is the brief, and it had to be brand new in 1993. So i.e. if it's just come out afterwards of June 93, it's no good. Whatever was available in June 1993 in a UK showroom is what we're going to be looking at and what your options are. Now I've got 12 vehicles for you to look at today, and I've got all those facts and figures for you. So all the pricing of the vehicles, the 0 to 60 times, the MPG, top speed, etc. So without further ado, let's get straight into it and have a look at our first vehicle. And we're going to start with the cheapest on our list and work our way up. So let's kick it off with first the Datu Shard GTI. Now the Datu Shard GTI cost £9,300 brand new in 1993. It had 99 brake horsepower thanks to its little 1 litre turbocharged engine, and it's actually one of the quickest on our list today at 0 to 60 in 7.7 seconds with a respectable top speed of 113 miles per hour. Now it's actually the cheapest on our list. The little Daihatsu, cracking little car, interior a little bit sort of, not the best, let's be honest. They were a bit cheap, but my word, did those vehicles pack a punch. They were super quick, and a car that can often get forgotten about when we talk about small hot hatches of the 1990s. And also worth mentioning as well, it was actually quite economical. They did 37 miles per gallon, which for cars in the early 90s, particularly one that was packing such power as that in a 60 time of just over 7 seconds, was actually quite respectable. So there we are, we have the cheapest car on our list. Let's work our way down now to the next car, number 2, which is the Suzuki Swift GTI. Now a little 1.3 Suzuki Swift GTI in the 93 would cost you £50 more, just £9,350, so 50 quid more than the Shard. 0 to 60 times was 8.7 seconds, so it was a second slower to 60 over the Daihatsu. It had 1 more brake horsepower, packing just 100 brake, and was 1 miles per hour slower top speed. Now the Suzuki Swift was quite a popular vehicle, however I probably wouldn't have picked it over the Daihatsu, but let me know your thoughts on that. But anyway, let's have a look at car number 3 on the list. Now car number 3 on the list definitely would pique my interest because it is a Rover Metro GTI, the 1.4 16 valve version. Now bear in mind we are talking about the Rover Metro GTI here, not the earlier MG models. The early MG models were 1.3 turbocharged engines. That changed in 1990 with effectively what we call the Mark II Metro, which then was badged as a Rover. Now it actually came in 2 forms of GTI. The early ones were about 95 horsepower, but later on they introduced the 105 brake horsepower model, which is what we're talking about here, available in 1993. Now it cost £9,995, so quite a big chunk more than the other 2 cars we've just looked at. 0 to 60 time was around 8.6 seconds, so still not as quick as a Shard, but slightly faster than the GTI Swift. And MPG was very similar, packing around 35 MPG. Now the Metro GTI was an extremely popular car, and it sold in pretty decent numbers. However, it was a little bit dated, the technology on it. Like I said, it was quite a very old design by that point, but nonetheless it was a really popular car, and I probably would be interested in that. However, let's see what car number 4 is, because maybe that might sway me. Now, car number 4 on the list is the Citroen AX GTI. Now, the AX GTI would have cost you £10,695 in June of 1993. Had a top speed of 116 miles per hour, so slightly faster than the cars mentioned previously. And a 0 to 60 time of 8.4 seconds. Now, slightly worse off in fuel than the others we've seen already, so 32 MPG, so yeah, not great. But there is no doubt that the little AX GTI was a really fun car to drive. In fact, even the bog standard AXs were quite fun to drive. Very light car, really nice things, and actually a really decent car which sold quite decent numbers. And was eventually replaced by its big brother, the Citroen Saxo, which went on to even greater success. And I have to say, I really did like the looks of the Citroen AX GTI. However, for just a few pounds more, you could have had car number 5 on our list, which is this. The Fiat Uno Turbo 1.4 IE. Now, what a little car this was. The Fiat Uno Turbo was a superb car to drive, costing £10,698 with a top speed of 123 miles per hour and a 0 to 60 time of 7.8 seconds thanks to that turbocharged engine. However, it wasn't the best on fuel. Average MPG was claimed to be 29 miles per gallon. In reality, probably slightly less than that, but my word, what a fun car to drive. And a very popular car at its time, like I said, worth absolutely fortunes now for a really clean example of an Uno Turbo. Now, unfortunately, I was never able to drive one. I have been a passenger in one, and I have driven the later Punto GT turbos, which were loosely based on that platform and the engine, etc. But like I said, I would love to own one today. And I have to say that is a strong contender on my list so far. But let's have a look at car number 6 on the list. Now, car number 6 on my list is something really special, which is the Volkswagen Polo G40. The G40 cost £10,965, that's what it cost you in 1993 to buy. Was 113 brake horsepower, had a 0 to 60 time of 7.8 seconds and a top speed of 118 miles per hour. But the Polo G40 was a superb looking vehicle and today is worth a considerable amount of money for particularly a really clean example, if you can find one, that is. Now, next car on my list, car number 7, is the Vauxhall Nova GSI. The 1.6 GSI Nova cost £11,360 in June 93 and actually was the last year of its run because it would then be replaced not long later by the Vauxhall Corsa, which would come in other specs such as the SRI versions and a few other versions later on. But at the moment in 93, all you could buy was the Nova 1600 GSI, which actually was a really decent car, by the way, and I have driven one. I always liked the Nova, and personally for me, I always thought the Nova looked better than the actual Corsa B did later on that came out and replaced it. That's just my personal view. Some of you will differ. Now, believe it or not, it's actually the slowest car on our list, for 0 to 60 of 8.9 seconds to 60. Packed about 100 brake horsepower and did about 31 mpg. But it certainly was one of the most prettiest ones in my view. Well, one of the prettiest ones. In fact, I like the G40 actually the most. Anyway, let's have a look at the next car on the list. Now, you're probably wondering where this car has got to. Well, it's here now. It's got to be on any small car list when it comes to hot hatches. Of course, it's the Peugeot 205 1.9 GTI. Now, the 205 had been around for a long time by 1993. Was available in 1.6, but obviously most people went for the 1.9s. And at 1.9 would fit under the price point we put on this video. Costing £11,905 for the 1.9 GTI 205 in 1993. It was actually the fastest car on this list today, 128 miles per hour top speed with a 0 to 60 of 7.6 seconds and a return around 29-30 mpg. Now, the 205 was a revolution when it came out. It really did change the hot hatch market, and it was by far the leader in the pack for a number of years, particularly in the 80s. But when we get to 93 now, although the car still looked amazing, you've got to remember that this is now in its sort of twilight years. In fact, it's not long out going to go out production and will be replaced by the 106, which actually was also a superb car, particularly if you got it in GTI form. So let me know in the comments if you would have picked the 205 GTI. But before you do that, maybe you should have a look at the last few candidates because there are some really interesting vehicles on there. Now, next on my list is the Ford Fiesta RS 1800. Now, the RS 1800 in 1993 was actually quite fresh out, actually in a replacement engine because it replaced the RS Turbo about a year earlier. It would have cost you £12,140 in 1993. Had a 0 to 60 time of 8.1 seconds, 130 brake horsepower and did about 29 mpg. Very similar to the 205 in fact, although it was slightly slower than the 205. Now, I love the look of the RS 1800, I won't take that away for one moment. There was just something about the RS Turbo, those old CV8 engines with those turbochargers. The RS 1800 was aspirated. I did actually own one of these. I sold it in 2009. I think I got about 700 quid for it. God knows what it was worth today. It was in a lovely blue colour. I should never have got rid of it, but never mind. Think about how many cars we've probably sold over the years that are probably worth thousands of pounds. We've all probably done it, but there we go. So let me know if you would have the RS 1800. It's probably not top of my list if I'm honest with you. Now, it'd been the RS Turbo, that'd been different, but we're looking at cars that had to be available in 1993, and unfortunately the RS Turbo was no longer on sale. It'd been replaced by this 1800. Moving on, we've got the Honda Civic 1.6 ESI. Would have cost you £12,345 in 1993. At 125 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 8.6 seconds. And we'll do just over 120 miles per hour. Now, it was fresh out, this car was. It was quite a new model. I have to say, it was a really nice looking thing, the Honda Civic ESI. I do like Hondas, but I just prefer the later sort of Hondas that came out in the late 90s personally. But I do have huge affection for Honda products. They were superb. They made possibly some of the best petrol engines ever made. So let me know if you would have the Honda ESI off this list. Now we're down to the last two candidates on our list. And then we're going back to France now to have a look at the Renault Clio. Now the Renault Clio 16 valve would have cost you £12,595 in 93. Packed 137 brake horsepower, and it was quick because it had a 0 to 60 time of 7.8 seconds. It was pretty brisk, and I have been a passenger in one, I can tell you, they are quick. A superb looking car, it has to be said, but if you have a look at some of these other contenders on this list, there's also some cracking cars out there for a little bit less money, so maybe that might sway you. Let me know your thoughts on the Renault Clio 16 valve. And finally, the last car on our list, the most expensive, and something actually that probably would got forgotten about by most people when we think of small hot hatches of this period, which is the Mitsubishi Colt 1800 GTI. Now the 1800 GTI would have cost you £12,859 in 1993, which I thought was a little bit rich, to be honest, compared to some of the other cars on this list. But you'd have a real strong following, and it can't be argued it wasn't a nice looking car. I actually thought it was really nice looking, actually. Although performance, in my opinion, was a bit lackluster for that 1800 engine. It did have 138 brake horsepower, but 0 to 60 was about 8.7 seconds, so it's arguably only just in that sort of small hot hatch territory. And a top speed of 119 miles per hour. It's be fair to say that there are a lot of cars on this list that are a lot quicker, a lot cheaper than the 1800 GTI. And maybe that's why it's mostly forgotten about when you sort of think about that era of what was available to buy. So anyway, here are the 12 contenders for today. Let me know which one of these you would go and buy in that circumstances. In 93, which one are you going to go out with your hard-earned cash and buy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you've owned any of these vehicles as well, I'd love to hear about them as well, what your experiences were, reliability, etc. Any issues you had, did you love them to pieces, have you still got them? If you've still got them, I'd really like to hear from you, because maybe I'd like to come and see some of them. Quickly, I'll give you my view, which one I would pick for what it's worth. I'd probably narrow them down to about 4 or 5 vehicles of that list of 12 there. The ones that sort of stick out for me are the 205 GTI, the Polo G40, the Uno Turbo, the Shard GTI, mainly down to how, the price point of it, it was an excellent value for money for what it was, and the Metro GTI. The Metro's more heart than sort of head, really. It's probably be 5th choice for me, but I'd had a few of them, so I'm quite partial to a Metro GTI. The Shard probably be 4th, if I'm honest, because it's on the list because it's excellent value, but if someone picked it, I wouldn't blame them. Uno Turbo, G40 or the 205, it's probably a toss-up in the end. I mean, I love the Uno Turbo, but I think most people would probably be a toss-up between the G40 or the 205. The 205 is getting on a bit by now. It's obviously in the last few months, its production run in GTI form, but I don't know, there's just something about it, and also it's the fastest on the list, the quickest 0 to 60. They were amazing to drive. I've driven a few of them. I just love them. I think I probably would just go for the 205. But if I went off and veer the G40, I don't think that'd be a bad choice either. So there you go, my choice, the 205 GTI. I'm sure you'll pick something different, so let me hear that in the comments section below. I want to know which one you would have bought in the summer of 1993, going out and buying a little pocket rocket. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this new content. I'm going to do some more of these over the next few weeks, and we're going to look at different types of segment of vehicles and different years, going back to the 1970s. So make sure you check those out. Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, please do me a favour. If you can just press that like and subscribe button, it helps me out immensely. But also as well, you get all my latest content as it lands. And like I said, if you're new, go and have a look at my other content, because I do lots of other stuff as well, talking about the motor trade, going to the auctions, do my vlog videos, all things car related and motor trade related. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.